Join Sam and Will as they bring the Bible's stories to life through historical evidence and try not to feel out of place in a car garage, all while bringing you Under the Hood.
Welcome to Under the Hood. I'm your host, Will. I'm here alongside Sam. Sam, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about Mount Sinai, and particularly, are there proposed locations where we think Mount Sinai actually was, and what are the merits for each case, and why is it unlikely?
And this is one of those ones where Mount Sinai plays a huge role in the Bible, and you read all about it, and then today we're just like, we don't really know where it is.
That's correct. Every time I read a case where I'm like, oh, that's kind of compelling, and then there's always a fatal flaw that's like, oh, it probably isn't that place because that doesn't fit some description in the Bible. So I'm going to start this episode by saying we're going to look at three options. It's probably likely that none of them are correct, though by the time you get through them, you're like, that sounds compelling, and then there's a reason why it doesn't work.
And this is one of those weird ones where it's good to chase after this knowledge, but it's also okay at the end of it to be like, didn't figure it out.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. The Bible tells us what happened at Mount Sinai, why it happened at, and so the important part we know, it doesn't matter that we know the location, but it's kind of a fun little mental process to kind of go, I wonder where it is, And so the Bible's going to tell you how long they journeyed from different places. We know that when Moses is a shepherd of his father-in-law, who is a priest of Midian. So, okay, it's got to be near the Midianites. We know that it's a certain distance from, Kadesh Barnea. All of those things play into it. And so there's some locations. We're going to hit three that I think are pretty compelling and just talk about them. But first, what's Mount Sinai? What happens there?
Yeah,
For those that don't know.
Yeah, where do we see it in the Bible?
This is the place where when Moses leads, first off, when the burning bush happens, right? God calls Moses, hey, I want you to go to Egypt. I want you to deliver my people. It's at Mount Sinai, also called Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. And Moses sees a flaming thorn bush, and God speaks to him from that bush and says, eventually you're going to deliver these people back here to me. And then he comes back there, goes up on the mountain, and this is where he receives the law. This is where he receives the 10 Commandments. Israel is camped out there. Water comes from a rock. There's a lot of things that will happen at Mount Sinai that are actually kind of helpful to what we're looking at. But if you look at a map, all of this area from an aerial perspective, it's like places you would not want to live. Look how brown it is.
Yeah, you're like, let's go there.
Not a lot of green. So if you're delivering, potentially 2 million people out there, imagine how stressful it would be to think about water.
Yeah.
And food, which, again, the Bible comes and says it's supernaturally provided with manna, water from a rock, quail, these different things. But Mount Sinai, when you come to it, when Moses comes to it to receive the law, what's it like?
When God's there, it's crazy.
It's terrifying, utterly terrifying. So it says, God comes to Moses and it's like, you need to set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. So God's like, I don't even want you touching this mountain. Remember when Moses came and he's like, take off the shoes, you're on holy ground. Mm-hmm. Now he's like, I don't want these people touching it. Whoever touches the mountain will be put to death. And you're like, dang. No hand shall touch it, but he shall be stoned or shot, whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. And so then Moses moves forward, and imagine the sight. You just kind of almost enter into it. Imagine what this looks like. Now Mount Sinai, this is Exodus 19, verse 18. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, so you're just hearing this, this massive trumpet, Moses spoke and God answered him in thunder, and the Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. So imagine this flaming, quaking, shaking, loud, amazingly violent, and God's like, hey, come up into this.
Yeah, welcome.
And there's a reason why when he goes up, after a while, they're like, he must be dead.
Yeah.
Because who could survive that? Well, that mountain is supposed to be contrasted with the cross, right? Because here you have this mountain where God is going to give a standard, and who can stand on it?
No one.
right? It's only by grace that Moses is allowed. Anyone else who comes on this mountain shall be put to death. No one can stand under the holiness of this mountain where God's law is delivered. And when you get to another mountain, the cross, what happens? You have Jesus who goes up on the mountain, who is perfect, who fulfills the law, and he will be put to death on a different mountain of God's wrath that no one else could bear. He carries the law that was given on Sinai. He goes to the mountain, dies on the mountain so that everyone else can be brought in. So Hebrews 12, starting in verse 18, like it comes and it contrasts this, where it's like talking about Sinai, but in light of what Jesus has done for us, it says, you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire, darkness, and gloom, and a tempest, and a sound of a trumpet, and the voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further messages be spoken to them. So what is the New Testament saying? Like, they were like, get us out of here. Get this God away from us. This is too wrathful. It's too violent. This is too much. We can't even touch this mountain. The New Testament's coming. It's like, that mountain's gone, right? For they could not even endure the order that was given. Even if a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But listen to what it goes on and says, but you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to the innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant. That covenant of death is fulfilled for you. Now you come to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, one that's way better than Moses, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. Where Abel's blood cried for vengeance against Cain, Jesus' blood cries for mercy for us. And so that's the picture of what Mount Sinai offers and how the cross fixes it. But it's like, okay, Mount Sinai, where is it? Like, that's where we're getting at. 3 options, and we're going to race through these. You can do a deeper dive on your own. But the first one is called Jebel Musa. And Jebel is going to be like a common name. It's like a mountain, and it is in the Sinai Peninsula. So you come out of Egypt and you come to that peninsula that looks like an upside down triangle. Way down at the bottom is a place called Jebel Musa. It's where St. Catherine built a monastery. This one has the longest heritage of where we believed Mount Sinai to be. So the biggest thing going for it is not any of the clues. It's not any of the archaeology. It's not any of the history. It's the fact that there was a monastery built there in the early church, and they said, this is Mount Sinai that's been handed down to us. And we have no idea from who or from where, because any of the older sources we don't have.
Okay, but historically, people are like, this is the one.
That is the oldest claim
Okay.
that this is Mount Sinai. And so you can see, like, it's down in a basin, and the Mount Sinai would have been behind this monastery. It's still there to this day, though because it's in Saudi Arabia territory, it's not something that can be investigated. It's kind of blocked off. They don't like a lot of things going there. So that is where the traditional claim is. The problem with this is the route that goes way down, it dips way south into the Sinai Peninsula, makes it difficult. That's certainly not where the Midianites would have been. So if you know the Red Sea, it almost looks like a peace sign. The one further to the east is called the Gulf of Aqaba, and the Midianites were to the north and to the east of that. They wouldn't have been way down in the Sinai Peninsula. So if Moses is a shepherd for the priest of Midian, why in the world is he way down there? There's no Midianites there. So that's kind of one of the problems with it. It's further away from some of the locations than an 11-day journey. It would have been way too far. So when you look at the historical evidence, yes, it has the longest legacy.
But maybe not.
But probably not. So the next one, and this one also has its problems, is Jebel al-Lawz. Jebel al-Lawz. And this is on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba. It would have been, so peace sign, over with the Midianites, right? But now this is such a long trek that it now is too long. Like, it would be like, well, that...
Yeah, to get millions of people that far.
Yeah, they would have been like sprinting all the way there, it feels like. But when you go there, the evidence that you find is like, that's interesting. So, like, what do they do at Mount Sinai? When Moses goes up onto Mount Sinai, what are they doing down here?
The golden calf.
They're building a golden calf. Well, when you look at some of the inscriptions that you find on the rocks at the base of this mountain, you find the images carved into the rocks of calves. structures. So something was there where they revered this. Okay, well, that's interesting. You find lots of inscriptions. One of the things you find is inscribed as a menorah. Now, that's interesting because at Mount Sinai, God gives the instructions for what the tabernacle is supposed to look like, and he describes this golden lampstand. And notice that it has 7 wicks, right? 7 bowls. The menorah of today has 9. The one that was supposed to be in the tabernacle is 7. And so this is at the base. Where did this come from? It's a distinctly Jewish identity. When did that come from? Because this inscription is pretty old. At the top of this, you have this rock, right, that is split in half. Now, in the Bible, what happens when God provides water? It says that it comes forth split from a rock, and the water flows forward, and you just happen to have this rock that people look like, and they're like, that's kind of a weird anomaly. Like, you don't see that everywhere you go. Maybe that's it. And by the way, one of the most unique things about Jebel al-Lawz is when you look at it from a distance, among all the different mountain peaks of the region, what's unique about it? You notice? It looks like a shadow over the top of it. That's not a shadow.
It's burnt.
It looks burnt.
Oh, that's interesting.
So this thing, the peak of it is burnt. Well, how's Mount Sinai described? We just went through it.
Yeah, well, if there's a violent fire on top of it, then you would see something, I guess.
That's right. And so here you have this mountain that, for whatever reason,
just the top half is burnt.
It looks burnt. And whatever it's causing that discoloration, it looks burnt. It's certainly different than all of the other surroundings. And by the way, on the path to Jebel al-Lawz, the path that you would naturally take to get to this location from Egypt, you come across springs. Right? Well, and the Bible in Exodus 15, right after the Exodus, we're told, then they came to Elim, and there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. Well, some of the people who've studied this have found 12 springs in this place. And in the middle of a place that's filled with dirt and rocks, what do you see?
Palm trees.
Dozens of palm trees. And it's like, okay, so maybe that's Elim, and you get here and, you know, there's inscriptions celebrating calves and a split rock and the top of the mountain's burnt. And so, but the problem is it's so far away, and people have explanations for that. Research it on your own. Maybe Jebel al-Lawz is right. Again, your salvation isn't dependent upon whether you pick the right one. It's just kind of interesting, right? So then you come to the third one, and like I said, we're racing through these. The next one is Har Karkom. And this is the one where the location of it is just like, this is good.
Okay.
This is really good. Like, it's close to the Midianites. It's, you know, remember they battle the Amalekites in Exodus 17. Well, the Amalekites would have been right there. It mentions the desert of Shur, the desert of Sin, the desert of Paran. It's right in the middle of all those things. So, like, the location of Har Karkom, maybe it's a little bit too close to Canaanite territory, but of all the three that we've talked about, this one makes, to me, the most sense of the journeys and the distances. It puts us in the region that makes the most sense. And that is a fascinating start. And so you go there, and the guy that did the first study to propose this goes to the foot of this mountain, and he finds that there's an altar that's made of 12 stones that are arranged there. Now, that's interesting because in Exodus 20, God says, if you make an altar of stones for me, do not build it with dressed stones. What is a dressed stone?
A nice one?
Yeah, you're carving it to where they fit nice. Just take a natural stone. I don't want you cutting it. So take undressed stones, don't cut it, for you'll defile it if you use a tool on it. And so what do you see there? You see an arrangement of 12 stones that are arranged, that are uncut at the foot of this mountain. Now, the problem with this is, like, and there's studies that it doesn't look like they've been moved, but somebody in the 600s could have been like, well, let's put 12 stones.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Anyone who was there before this guy got there could have just put those stones
right
there after reading the Bible.
You can't measure. When was this sand moved?
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's interesting. I mean, this is an altar of 12 stones that are lined up in an interesting fashion. And we're told in Exodus 24, verse 4, that Moses wakes up, and he got up early next morning, and he built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel that are not cut. Well, you find those there. Another thing that you find at Har Karkom, remember when Moses is on Mount Sinai and he's like, I want to see your face, God. And what does God reply?
He's got to hide you.
You can't. Like I'm going to put you in the cleft of the rock. I'll pass before you. When Elijah later on goes by there, he goes into a cleft of a rock, right? So there's some cleft that's pretty obvious that both Moses and Elijah are going to be hidden in. And when you look at Har Karkom, there's like this perfect little nook that just stands out. And God said, when my glory passes, I'll put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I pass by. Well, at Har Karkom, nice thing.
Cleft.
There's a little cleft there. Another thing is you have a carpet of flint. Now, why is that interesting? In Exodus 4:25, we're told that they were using flint knives to circumcise infants. Remember when Moses is on his way back to Egypt and he hasn't circumcised his kids, and all of a sudden Zipporah whips out a piece of flint and circumcises the kids? Like, whoa, where in the world?
It's graphic, yeah.
The entire region, they call it a carpet of flint because all of the rocks there are flint, super sharp knives. You wouldn't want to walk barefoot there.
And that's messed up as a man of walking through that afterwards. Just a reminder of everything that's happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Like everywhere you go, you're like, why is there flint everywhere?
There's flint all over the place. And in Deuteronomy 8:15, it's the rock of flint. Like aerial photos, if you fly over this region, what do you find? You find all these ancient little circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yeah.
Well, what are those? Those are animal pens. So even though it's in the middle of the desert where you shouldn't expect anyone to find, there's wadis where you see evidence of there was water flow at one point, but you also see these stone pens where they would keep animals. And there were 239 sites with these hut floors, 42 fireplaces, 55 flint workshops. So this is a big operation. It's not like, oh, there's little villagers and maybe a dozen of them. At some point in a place where it doesn't make sense for a lot of people to be, there was a lot of people here.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, you know what? The dating is the big issue because when they date a lot of this stuff, it goes way earlier than when the Exodus would have been.
Okay.
And so the fatal flaw of Har Karkom, it fits so much. It's so great. But the dating
timing
right now, which, that might be, maybe that's off. Maybe they misdated it. Could be. But here you find all of these, artwork on stones. For example, in Deuteronomy 8:15, it says that he leads you through the great and terrible wilderness with its fiery serpents and scorpions. And so in the mind of the Israelites, when they're going through the wilderness, what's the big problem? Scorpions and serpents, right? You find rock carvings, and what's on the rock carving?
Exactly that.
Scorpions and serpents, right? Or you move forward. Here's an interesting one, because you see a snake alongside this stick with a circle on top of it, and it looks like it's got antenna. You see what I'm looking at? Well, the sign of a circle with horns on it was a sign of divinity. You see the Egyptian gods that'll have a disc on their head with the horns that come up alongside of it. So here you see a staff with the mark of divinity on top of it. So this is a divine staff that's next to a serpent. Can you think of any story in the Bible where a staff and a serpent are involved? This is Moses, right? So he throws down a staff, it transforms into a serpent, and it just so happens that right next to those things is the symbol that come from glyphs, and it's a U shape, which means to change, and a dot, which means to act. So it's saying there was an action in which something was transformed, and then it's a divine staff next to a snake. So it's communicating a story where a divine staff was changed to a snake. And so at least that's the interpretation of Dr. Emmanuel Anadi, who's a professor at the University of Leeds. And so is that it? There's artwork on the Karkom's stones where you see two tablets that are fused together, broken down into how many sections?
10.
Right, at the base of Mount Sinai, right? So that is interesting. You go further and you see more artwork, and there's the menorah again. You see the lampstand there that's inscribed on this rock where you see the lampstand with its different branches coming out. Well, there were 7 lamps that were set on this lampstand. And so when you're all around the base of this thing, you see the artwork, you see the commandments, you see the altar of 12 stones. It's in the right location. And is this it?
Maybe.
I don't know. Could be. Certainly fascinating. But the problem is with all of these, St. Catherine, it's the wrong location. Jebel al-Lawz, it seems too far. Har Karkom, it dates to the wrong time. And so the reality is, it's kind of a bummer. All of this is fascinating. Maybe they traveled through there. Maybe they inscribed on these rocks. But was the pens and all this civilization that seemed to have been there, is that the Israelites? It certainly has the evidence that there were sacred things going on in worship. Was it them? We don't know. But it's kind of fascinating to imagine, to wonder. But at the end of the day, we don't know for sure where Sinai was.
And I think this is one of those interesting moments. Like, we don't know the exact spot of where Mount Sinai stands today, but we do know how important it was in the Bible. We do know how important it is that God came to his people on that mountain and said, hey, I want to be your God, and I want you to be my people. That I'm a personal God who cares about you, and this is how I want you to live. And it's really beautiful that Sinai, in this violent, scary space, is the place where Moses meets with God.
That's right. You know, one of the interesting things about Sinai, and I think we'll close with this, is the name Sinai itself comes from a root that means thorns. Sinek. What are thorns? Like, if you go back to Genesis 3 at the very beginning of the story of Scripture, the first physical manifestation of the fall is thorns. And here you come to a place that's a holy mountain, right? Like, this should be a glorious mountain. There should be tons of fertility. It should be filled with life and abundance. And instead they get there, and what's there? It's earthquakes and fire and terror. And it's covered with thorn bushes, which is the symbol of curse. And God gives the law there, which is what? Like, that's a reminder that for those that are trying to earn their salvation through the law's actually a curse to you because you'll never measure up. So then Jesus, like we talked about earlier, will go to another mountain, and he will touch the mountain, and he will be put to death, and he will be crowned with what? The very symbol of Sinai. He will wear the thorns. He will bear the curse of the law that we can't fulfill because he could keep it perfectly. And he'll take our sin upon himself. He'll take the doom of Sinai upon himself so that we can have the glories of Mount Sinai and an eternal inheritance and peace and the love of God forever, being made righteous forever and ever and ever. And it's like Jesus comes and he says, you guys can't bear Sinai. It's too much for you. You'll never measure up. You'll never meet the perfect standards of God. You'll always live in the doom of his wrath unless somebody does something for you. Let me carry Sinai for you. I'm the only one who can fulfill it. I'm the only perfect, unblemished lamb. Let me fulfill the law for you by living the perfect life, and I'll give you my righteousness. I'll be your representative in front of God, and I'll take your shortcomings and your faults. I'll take the thorns. I'll go to the mountain of death, and I'll give my life for you so that you can have the mountain of blessing. And we may not know where Sinai is. And we may not be able to see Zion either, the ultimate Zion. But we know that what was accomplished for us on these mountains ultimately gives us an inheritance that's unshakable, and it's glorious.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And so, sorry to leave you with a cliffhanger. Go research it. Come up with your own theories. There's plenty of writings on all these things. But we want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Join us next time as we go under the hood of another story in the Bible.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'd love you checked out some other content we have. You can find that at sunlitstudios.com.